All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Kevin Hunting with Two Steps Forward Coaching, and I am here with the amazing.
Oh, sorry. I was like ready for you to be my hype guy this morning. You already hyped me up with my earrings and we got on and everything. So I was like, okay, come on. And with Holly Krivo of Holly Krivo Coaching.
And this is Reflection Friday, where we're going to be doing this every Friday, and we're going to be giving you a lot of insight about not only a personal takeaway that we've had this week, but also some great insight from our experiences with our individual clients that can help you if you are experiencing something very similar. So hang in there. You're going to love this. This is our first one. So Holly, I'd love to start off by asking you quickly, what was a major takeaway for yourself personally this week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so excited to do this. First of all, thanks for joining me with this. So for me, and I probably talked about a lot. I put it in my newsletter. I did a video. I think the power of our environment. We talk a lot about that. And I think in this past year, we've all had our environment right. We've all scrunched in. And so, my brother was living with us. He took care of our house when we were in Norway, and he had surgery. So he stayed with us a little longer, and he was in my office as his room. And so he moved out. I got to move from the kitchen table back to my office, and it felt like a deep sigh. And I don't even think I realized how much, I want to say anxiety or stress, although there was times that people would, I was like joking. I'm like, why are you eating in my office? Like, get out of here, go away. So I wasn't always my best self. So just the power of our environment and how that can add so much stress and we don't even realize it, right? Whether it's like we talk about, is it a flickering light? Is it a piece of furniture you hate? Is it like a layout? Like just the power of taking our environment back, right? And making it work for you. And again, I know we're all in these circumstances, right? Like working from home, kids are at home, but what can you do to make your space work for you? It's not rocket science, but I think it's something we just tolerate and we're like, why do I do this? I hate this place, or I hate this way, or this isn't working. Like, what can I do?
Absolutely.
So I think it was just a reminder to be like, okay, how do I make this space? And I spent $0. I spent, but just kind of getting everything around so that I can function. So I think for me, it was just really taking in the space. What are you tolerating? What can you kind of fix to better serve you? That was a good reminder for me this week.
Nice.
What about you? What was a personal insight?
Well, I'm going to tell you this week, it was a gentle nod to myself and hopefully a nod to you out there about kindness and just tapping into how powerful kindness can be, not only in terms of how you may feel once you do it, but also just the act of doing it. And just a quick personal story that happened to me this week. I was at Publix checking out right at the register. There was this amazing younger man. His name is Lucas, and he appeared to me to be a special needs individual. I don't know that to be true, but I'm pretty intuitive. He hit the level of service that he provided to me and just what he asked me and how he was so curious and gracious left me thinking, you know what, I should say something. Like I should give this kid accolades and just acknowledge the fact that he's providing amazing service. So I almost walked away and walked out of the store and caught myself in the moment. And I thought, you know what, Kevin, no, turn right back around and do this. Because sometimes in that split second moment, we think about it, but then we just sort of walk away from it quickly because we're like, you know what, I have better things to do. I have to I have my work I need to do. But I turned back around, went to the front desk, asked for the manager of the store, and then just proceeded to share that I was like, you know what, you got a superstar here, like Lucas. I will be coming back because of this individual. And I think my big takeaway here is we don't do it enough. And what if you did it more often? What if you just took the time to acknowledge either someone by saying how kind they were, or just be kind to someone in a moment when you never know when they may need it. So that's, to me, that's what came up for me this week. And I sort of played it down and easily forgot about it. But I think that the world would be such a more beautiful place. And hopefully you agree, if we could just be more kind, just show your kindness.
Yes. Because in your heart, you were kind in that moment, right? I guess kind is an act. In your heart, you're like, oh, you acknowledged, you probably were really gracious with him, but you didn't outwardly take that extra step. Or you did, because but you thought about
I caught myself. Funny, it was in that moment where I did it. I caught myself and I was like, you know what? Why not just take the minute that it's going to take to walk over and share this amazing service that you've received? And you know what? It feels good to do it, but we don't often
Mhm.
allow ourselves to do
Yep.
it, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Mhm.
But just
Mhm.
tap into your kindness and just be kind when you can, because
Mhm.
it comes back to you in such an amazing way. It really fills you up in a way versus, every usually what happens, right, is people complain, and that's what you always hear is
Yeah,
people complaining,
for
people
sure.
griping about their experience. And I was like, what if we all tapped into and stopped complaining and stopped and started celebrating more what actually did work, or the specialness of a particular situation.
Mhm.
It takes seems like that takes more effort, but it really doesn't. If you're going to
Right.
gripe, you can also give someone accolades, or
Well, you kind
you
of
know sh-
should, right? Like if you're going to gripe about something, you should be able to like good and bad, right? You should
exactly.
acknowledge. And I think too, there's something about like trusting your intuition because something said I should give feedback, and I knowing you, I would think that that would have bothered you. Like the next day, it'd be like, why didn't I not say something about Lucas? Like he was awesome. Like,
And I
and
think that's
it
why I
took you
did
what,
funny.
five
I started
minutes?
playing out in my head. I'm like, Kevin, this is you actually this is about me also taking care of myself and
Mhm.
honoring myself in that moment, because that's what came to mind. And so I did it. I followed through. And that is who I am. You're right. Sometimes if I don't follow through on the things that I know that I want to,
Yeah.
it can sit with me.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah. That's awesome.
so
I love
I'd
that.
love to flip this now and ask you, what are some key topics? What's one topic
Yeah.
maybe this week that has come up with your clients that you really want to share, in terms
Mhm.
of how it can either work for someone or just what you've learned about?
Yeah. No, and I think this is something I've been really like thinking about lately, personally and professionally. But I had a session with a client and she has had severe, severe trauma.
Mm,
You can't even it's like sounds like a movie you would watch, right? And so we were talking through it, but we talked about how a lot of people, and we were talking about like alcoholism and drug addiction and all that stuff, and how and she is also in therapy. So just a heads up, like that's not what we're working through. We're working through other stuff. But the power of like these little traumas that we have and how those can stick with us. Cause I think when
mm,
people hear trauma, they're like, okay, nothing terrible happened to me, right? Like, but how we have these little traumas that sometimes we don't acknowledge because they're not as bad as somebody losing a parent or, a sexual assault or all these terrible that we ignore them and then they can just stick with us, right? So I think it's that piece of how do you think back to times in your life that you were hurt or that
mm.
something happened that was shocking or something, and like really sit there and say, how is that affecting me? Because I think that we don't give those a lot of credit, and you're like, look back, you're like, no, that was really traumatic for an 11-year-old to have that happen, or a
Absolutely.
12-year-old. And it's not a comparison, right? We have a tendency to be like, well, it's not that bad. Okay, it's not, but for you, what did that do to you? And how can you maybe start working through it and acknowledging that? Not sitting in it, not using it as an excuse, but I think just that value of like acknowledging those little things that will affect you currently, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I get the sense here, what I'm hearing you say too is, it don't just brush it off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's easy to just sort of move through it or
Yeah.
overlook it,
Mm-hmm.
when there's so much to be found and learned about yourself in the process of
Yeah.
recognizing that maybe this had a bigger impact than even what you think it may have, because you just have
And
sort of buried it.
and even if it is something like that's normal, right? That's like, maybe you came from a divorced household. Like you're like, well, everybody comes from a divorced household. Okay, but that doesn't mean that that wasn't traumatic for you and that you had
Hmm.
some limiting beliefs around that. You have some interpretations. You're getting held back by that piece. So for me, I think, for trauma, I'm really coming to that point of like trauma is just anything that kind of shocks your little body and your mind, right? Like, and it can
Hmm.
be good or bad. But really taking that time to look at those and
Nice.
say, like, how does that affect you? So that's kind of my big takeaway from this week.
And on my side, I can tell you that this topic is just a unifying theme that I've been seeing across all of my clients. And again, my clients can range from like senior business leader, kind of head of finance,
Mhm.
down to, like a supervisor type of role, which is confidence. And,
Mhm.
this idea of like wanting more confident or to be more confident in certain
Mhm.
situations. And so for me, I think again, this is a topic that is very nebulous. It can be very nebulous because
Mhm.
everyone talks about confidence, and it's much harder to, I think, build confidence, because really in order to do that, you need to step in and understand sort of the dynamics, right? Of under what circumstances perhaps are you not feeling confident, and even circumstances where you do feel confident. You can do both and look at that, but then go a level deeper in those areas that you want to feel more confident. A lot of times that can be around maybe having tough conversations with your employees, like, the idea of confrontation that can come and building up the confidence that, well, as long as you're sort of sticking to and honoring yourself in terms of how you want to deliver that message and do it in a fair, respectful, hopefully kind way, you can still be firm and confident in sharing that news. But we always tend to expect the worst. That's that's where our thoughts go. And so it's looking at that and unraveling that piece. But I think just this theme of confidence keeps coming up. And I think it goes without saying that anyone who's probably seeing this on the replay, you can nod your head and just think of what are those moments where you don't feel confident, that you would want more confidence. And so that to me was just a huge piece, and it reverberates all the time. It's such a common theme.
Well, and I think, for confidence, we don't make a move until we're confident, right? We don't do things until we're confident, but you can't think your way to confidence, right? You cannot think your way into it. You cannot think yourself into the current. You just got to do it. So I think that's a piece that people are like, I'll do it when I'm confident. You're like, well, good luck. You're going to be waiting forever because you can't think yourself into it.
And I would say that I think it's a combination of both. I do think that the first piece is understanding that thinking component, like what's the thought behind why maybe you're not confident, and dissecting that a little bit and sort of, coming to terms with what's really behind why you don't feel confident, because it's typically something completely unrelated, right? Or something, an experience that you may have had when you were younger, or maybe an experience that you had with a previous manager, right? Where they shut you down all the time. And so you lost confidence in your voice because you're like, well, I'm just going to probably speak. And next thing you know, someone's going to cut me off, or just totally not address the idea that I'm sharing. And so I think it's both. I think it's that. And then, like you said, putting it into action. And that's those two pieces and components together, I think, can start to build more confidence. And I'll tell you this much, though. So many people out there want to just go buy a book from the New York Times bestseller list and think they're going to get confidence. It definitely doesn't work that way.
That's what I'm saying, that thinking through that thinking, that education. If I learn all these things, like I'll be ready to go.
People do that all the time, but I can tell you that until you're willing to do a little bit more of the work behind understanding your own reasons for not feeling confident and stepping into that fear, even regardless of the outcome, that's the big piece, right? We start judging all these components of stepping into our fear and what we think the outcome either needs to be or should be, versus just stepping into it and knowing that, wow, there was real power in just trying it. That's where confidence can come from, is I think both components. But I do want to throw out there that you won't get confidence just by reading the latest book, #1 book from Leadership and Courage from
as a coach, I've done it, and I don't want to speak for you, but I would assume like every coach I know has been like, well, if I take this course and I know this course and I do this and I learn this and I learn this, then I'll be ready to go and I'll be totally confident. And that's years later, people are still in the same spot, right? Like it's totally. Like you said,
it's almost like you're fooling yourself. It's kind of like you're placating yourself and rationalizing when
I'm learning.
It's not. Yes.
And I'm learning and I'm making progress, and it's as opposed to like just doing it and feeling nauseous and being like, I don't know if I did it right, but at least I did it. So, well, this is great. Thank you. This is a fun way to just share what's going on and what we're seeing in clients and out in the world.
Absolutely. And again, if you're out there and you're seeing this on the replay and any of this has spoken to you, if you really find yourself in some of the messages, feel free to contact either one of us through direct message, or just visit our website. You can go to twostepsforwardcoaching.com or hollykrivo.com and find more information. So thanks, and be on the lookout because we'll be doing this again next week.
It's super fun. Great way to spend my Friday morning.
All right. Everyone have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.